Hello everybody! Welcome to another Nicaragua video. This one is not so much about Nicaragua as it is about the US culture. Because I didn't really understand what US culture was when I lived in the United States. And I think for a lot of people it's quite hard to really grasp what US culture actually is. So this video is all about defining US culture. At least I believe I have a grasp on sort of what makes the United States different than other places, especially Nicaragua, right? So, what am I getting at? Well, to be honest, the easiest way to put it is this. There used to be American culture that was more like other culture, but it was basically replaced. Companies replaced actual culture with corporate culture. And the easiest way to think of it is that Americans, for the most part, US citizens, are actually products. Most things that Americans do and believe has little to do with human happiness or family, and a lot to do with being profitable for the companies. So a lot of American culture is all about work. And the irony here is that it's not in your best interests, because what happens is we basically have created a philosophy of slavery where you will spend 8 to 10 hours a day with coworkers and less than 1 or 2 hours a day with your children or your family. The easiest way to understand American culture today in 2023 is to understand that we outsourced family life. You may hear about family values, and you watch all the Disney movies, and they force the family values down your throat. Did you ever think about why they have to be talking about family values all the time? It's because we've forgotten them. Like, seriously, we've absolutely forgotten what it means to value your family above your job. In the United States, it is absolutely normal to value your career over your family. And in fact, if you talk about love and relationships and family, the general consensus is don't get distracted by a relationship or a woman or a man, because that's going to take you away from your career and living the best, most high-achieving, successful life you could possibly have. Woo! That's the thing, though. In reality, you end up just working and then dying of heart disease before you can retire. It's all a scam. Yes, there are some people who are lucky and they're able to find jobs that give them a work-life balance where they can spend time with their family. These people are like 1 in 100,000. They are incredibly rare. Most people that I met in the United States, especially young people, are obsessed. They have been raised by parents who believe that if you don't force your kid to college, you are a failure. You are a horrible parent. And these parents believe this so strongly that instead of giving their children the time of day when they're growing up, they work all the time because they've been told, they've been propagandized into believing that it's more important to give your kid a college degree than your time. And this is our culture. American culture doesn't really exist anymore because we've replaced it. We've outsourced all of these things. A wealthy American family, both the parents work, the mother and the father work. What is that? What kind of family life is that? I mean, we live in a world where both parents could work part-time. You don't need to have 2 full-time jobs, but if you want to live in the US, you do. And that's the thing. The United States culture is incredibly propagandized. And what's so weird about it is Americans don't feel like they're propagandized. They think that propaganda, for the most part, is something that happens in other countries. You know, like Russia and China. They're always spreading propaganda, you know? But we're so good at propaganda, you could argue that United States citizens are some of the most heavily propagandized people in the world. And if you don't believe me, hear me out for a minute, okay? You hear about wars, you hear about disease, you hear about drugs and all this nonsense. People are always hanging over the imminent destruction of the world over your heads, you know? But over 1 million people in the United States die of heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and other obesity, heart-related problems every single year. Statistically, like 1 out of 3 people listening to this right now, you're gonna die of heart disease, a preventable condition, okay? So while you're listening to all this propaganda about war and all this other stuff and how horrible it is in the rest of the world because no one has freedom of speech, oh no, we can't complain about our governments, oh, it's horrible. You ever wonder, well, why do we talk about all this when we're dying in droves of a preventable disease that has been killing us for 60 years, and it's killing more and more and more people? We're not making any progress on this disease. And so I'm bringing this up to you because I'm talking about propaganda and US culture. You can't understand US culture if you don't understand heart disease and what actually causes it. Because here's the kicker. It's not fat. Heart disease is caused by carbohydrate consumption. I'm talking about sugar, bread, rice. I know you don't believe me, but that's the part. We're so propagandized that for 60 years, we've been dying in droves, literally in droves, to a preventable illness. And everyone is like, oh yeah, this is just life. You know, that's just how it is. It's not. You don't have to die when you're 60 or 70 of a preventable illness. You can take care of your body. But the problem is, we've covered this all up. And you know what's so up? The very people who provide us with these things, they found out the truth in the 1980s, okay? If you want to unwind this whole rabbit hole, all you need to do is learn about 2 experiments that were carried out by the very lobbies who hid the results. The 2 things you need to learn about are the Minnesota coronary experiment, which showed that replacing animal fats with vegetable fats, it does reduce your cholesterol. Yeah, that number, it goes down. But here's the dirty secret. You actually die more of heart disease. And then the second thing was the sugar lobby. Basically, they discovered a link between sugar and cancer, and then they hid it. That is called Project 259. Both of these things occurred over 40 years ago, people. We are so propagandized that we ignore a preventable illness that kills all of us. You, listening to this, you've lost somebody to this disease. You know somebody who died of heart disease or died of cancer. These are all illnesses that are preventable. And the crazy part is the very associations that are supposed to protect us, like the American Heart Association, guess who founded the financial aspect of the AHA? Well, it's Crisco. Vegetable oil. Interesting. I wonder if that's a conflict of interest. I wonder if there's a reason that when you go into the grocery store, there's heart-healthy icons on all of the vegetable oil, despite the fact that the very companies who do this discovered that it's not actually good for you. We live in a time where we are the products. Everything we believe as Americans was put there to be profitable. Wedding rings, the concept of healthcare and having to pay for all of this stuff and paying for your education. Believe it or not, for most of American history, we were just like everyone else. Education was, for the most part, free. It wasn't until the 70s and 80s that some of our higher ups were like, wait a second, When education's free, all the poor people, all the black people, all the Hispanics, they start going to school and getting educated, and then they start showing up in political offices. And they didn't like that. You can call me bitter, but just go look at the interviews and see what these people said. They made college expensive so that the poor wouldn't get into the government and these high positions. This was all purposeful. We live in an engine of profit where we are the products, and most of the things we believe actually harm our well-being. When you live in the United States, you hear a lot about freedom. But you see that? Let me show you something. I live in this city, okay? I live right in the center of the capital of the country. And let me show you what I can do. Hey, little rooster. Do you see this beautiful creature? Well, guess what? Where you live, having these things is illegal. In many places, you can't have a chicken in your own house. You're not allowed. Especially a dangerous rooster like this one. And oh, you want to have eggs in your house so you can feed yourself? Sorry, maybe half of the homeowners associations in the US and the local registrations, you can't do that because we don't want you growing food. Because if you feed yourself, you won't buy food from us. No, that can't happen. And this is American culture. We've taken human life and we've replaced it with ideologies that are profitable for companies. And that's the easiest way to understand it. The American is a very profitable thing. It is a product. You can think that you're a person, but that's just from your perspective. From most of these companies who actually influence and control our world, you are a product. Everything you do is meant to make them money. So, what do you do with this? I don't know. To be honest, my answer was this: I'm out, and I moved to Nicaragua, and my life has been better ever since. I mean, look, I've been here through the COVID pandemic, I've been here through all this inflation and all this nonsense, and let me tell you something. I wouldn't have any idea that inflation was a worldwide problem unless I looked at YouTube and looked at the news about other countries. I can tell you that in my 5 years living in Nicaragua, my rent has never been increased. And the cost of basic goods has rarely gone up that much. Inflation in Nicaragua is a constant, stable thing for the most part. It did inflate a bit more than normal, but the things that inflated, for the most part, were goods Nicaraguans don't buy. For example, the 2 things that I saw get more expensive. Actually, no, there was only one thing that I saw really get more expensive. It totally disappeared, and then 3-4 weeks later, it came back, and it was like 30% more, and it's never gone down again. And that was butter, which is something Nicaraguans generally don't consume. It's way too expensive. They consume vegetable oil. And by the way, Nicaraguans are dying in droves of heart disease and diabetes because they consume a lot of carbohydrates, vegetable oil, and sugar. You might not believe me, but sugar is actually one of the most dangerous substances that you can consume. It is directly linked to all of the major causes of death. It's not just the causative agent behind heart disease, but it's also a causative agent of cancer. You get distracted by all of these healthy things and health foods, right? But that's all propaganda. You are being lied to. And the funny thing is, I don't think the US government even realizes this stuff. Because if they did, they would feed their military soldiers properly. They would feed their soldiers protein and fat, because that's what the human body actually needs. You eliminate all gastric problems and most diseases when you just eat high quality proteins and fats, and like vegetables and this kind of thing. If you're just eating stuff that isn't in a package, and you're not eating sugar, and you're avoiding eating excessive amounts of rice and these things, you'll live a long time, really. And if you don't believe me about this whole carbohydrate thing, it's common knowledge throughout human history. That's why we had to make up propaganda. Because if you look at history, all of the bread-eating societies in our world, they developed heart disease. I don't know if you realize this, but ancient Egyptian mummies had heart disease. And Egypt was a bread society. They worshipped bread to the point where the symbol of wheat meant Egypt. Okay? Heart disease comes from carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is a totally unnecessary nutrient. You can eliminate your straight up carbohydrate out of your life. Never eat bread, never eat rice, never eat sugar. Only get your carbs from vegetables and fruits. You'll have a much better life, and you won't even be able to gain weight. You want to hear some more disturbing propaganda? Working out won't make you lose weight. That's the stupid thing. Have you ever wondered, why is it that so many people are obese, even though we've supposedly figured this out? We've been telling people what to do. Well, yeah, the conclusion is that people are just lazy, right? But that's the thing. It's propaganda. It's not that people are lazy, it's that they're lied to. If you keep eating carbohydrates and drinking soda every single day, you can work out all day and you won't lose weight. Because working out doesn't make you lose weight. That's the disturbing reality of it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm exaggerating a bit, because obviously getting some physical exercise will make you lose a little bit of weight. But have you ever wondered, why is it that people always gain that weight back? Why is it that people struggle so much? It's because we're lied to, really. And we've been lied to so extensively that the only people who even know the truth are some of the executives of the companies who pitch the products that make us sick. This is our culture. I'm sorry. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you want to consult with me, I offer consultations for $20 per 30-minute session. You can also check out my free course on YouTube all about a life in Nicaragua. I compiled every question anybody ever asked me. I put it in one place and I just answered everything, and I added timestamps and a table of contents so you can just click on this course for free and look at it, and it'll answer most of the questions you have about living in this country. Life doesn't have to be so miserable. You don't have to work constantly. You can have a high-quality life, working a part-time job, and spending most of your time with your children, your family, and your friends. How long are we going to keep letting these companies kill us? That's the only question I have.